Yeah, there we go. So there's a new law that supposedly has been passed in France, which makes obsolence illegal in terms of if you sell a product and that product over time will become limited in usage, such as, for example, a phone, right? A cell phone is the ideal example because everyone and their mother, especially those who watch this, have a cell phone, and they probably had several cell phones, right? And you all know what it's like. Eventually, the cell phone gets slower and slower. The software sort of like slows everything down. The battery life drops. The phone just feels slow and difficult and tough to use, and it just seems like this whole thing is planned by design, really. And if you think about it, it makes total sense. If you're selling a cell phone, you don't want people to buy your cell phone and then walk away and use that cell phone for 10 years. No, you want people to use that cell phone for 10 months, or maybe not even that. Ideally, you want people to buy a new cell phone every single day because then you can make more money, right? So would it not make sense to when there's a new software update, and I'm not suggesting anybody's doing this, but I'm just hypothetically speculating that it makes perfect sense, that every time you introduce an update, a software update of some sort, it slows down the mobile phone. It all makes sense because it has happened to me several times. It always happens. Everyone's phone slows down over time. And so you could speculate, is that because everyone is installing lots and lots of apps and they're using lots and lots of storage? Or is it because they're using their phone excessively? What does excessive usage of phone really mean? I mean, everyone is on their phone all the time. Literally, they're on their phone all the time. The phone is your most valuable tool, really. And most people can't even leave the room without bringing their phone with them. And that applies to me as well. I mean, just think about it. If you leave the room, and especially if you leave the house and your phone isn't there, you sort of like feel naked and helpless. You're like, yeah, but I can't call anybody. I can't check my email. I can't check my socials. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do anything. Which is quite hilarious because I perfectly remember what life was like before the phone. I do. But I don't know how life would have been had I not gotten a phone and had I not become totally reliant on a phone. And that applies to pretty much everyone. I mean, these days, especially in Western Europe and the whole West, really, your life is set up so that you need a phone. Because if you don't have a smartphone, really, I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible to live. I'm just saying it's going to be ever more difficult. Anyway, back to the point here. So this new law by France, allegedly, according to my understanding, says that if somebody is caught manufacturing and selling merchandise, like a phone or a computer or a tablet, or just about any sort of electronic product, or whatever it is, that slows down over time and that becomes useless, and that has built-in engineering limitations, that's punishable by law, and they can face a steep fine of up to 300,000 euros, which is about 300,000 US dollars, a lot of money, 2 years in prison, and obviously that's gonna introduce a host of court cases, I think. And this raises the question from a persuasion perspective. If you're the prosecutor on behalf of, hypothetically speaking, if the French state prosecutes Apple because they believe that the newest iPhone, by the way, this is hypothetical. I'm not saying they are. I'm just hypothetically speculating if that were the case. Let's say that the French state chose to prosecute Apple in a French court. How in the world are you going to prove that the iPhone, or excuse me, that the usage of the iPhone hasn't been too excessive? Because if I'm Apple, I'm just saying, yeah, but of course, the iPhone is going to slow down because the users have been using all of these apps. They've been using the camera a lot. They've been using they've been taking a lot of movies or recorded a lot of movies, a lot of clips. They've taken lots and lots of photos. They've installed lots and lots of apps. This is eaten up of the memory, etc., etc. Now, I personally think, given my limited background with respect to technology, that it's totally possible to create a phone that will last for literally years without slowing down. I think so. But that's just me. That's just me, my line of thinking. However, if you're the prosecutor on behalf of the French state, what are you going to tell the panel of judges? How are you going to frame it? How are you going to persuade them to be convinced that, oh no, this phone slowed down and it wasn't meant to slow down? I mean, the best way would have been to had another phone that didn't slow down, right? But still, then that phone would have needed to be used by the same user doing the exact same things that the phone that slowed down did. In other words, everyone needs two phones. The regular iPhone that the French state is claiming that slows down, and the phone that doesn't slow down. How are you going to do that? Are you going to give free phones to people? I mean, I'm just speculating here, but it's interesting. And here's the point. These are difficult and tough situations, especially when you're sort of like fighting for your view. So once again, the challenge is really to the French state. How in the world are you gonna promote and prosecute any sort of delinquent or anybody who you believe is a delinquent of creating products that sort of like wither and decay and slow down? That ain't easy. That's persuasion at another level. But fundamentally, it's all about creating the vision. A late Jim Campism. My point is this. This is a prime example of how persuasion can work and how it's difficult to use, and also how you're using persuasion. I'm mixing up persecution and persuasion all the time. How you're using persuasion to make a sale. And food for thought, especially for you, if you're running a business. If you want to learn more about business, entrepreneurship, making sales, and so on with respect to persuasion, if you're a solicitor or not, get subscribed to my email list. The link to do so is in the episode description, wherever you're watching or listening to this, and I'll see you there.